Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hi, welcome back.
So, guys, let's preface this before we get into too much detail and just send out an intention and a prayer that there will be peace on earth that will come through an awakening and an understanding of exactly the situation that we have been in that divide and conquer mentality here, and that fear-based mindset that has so dominated this planet.
Yeah, so let's put out the intent for more of a oneness type ending to happen or new beginning.
And so, we feel like we need to cover what's happening out there. It's part of our job is to cover what's happening, to bring you guys news. I know some would want nothing but to focus on the spiritual, but we try to bring the news with a spiritual focus and, relate to the bigger picture and the manipulation that really goes on behind the scenes and has gone on throughout human history.
Right, because there's so much more going on under the cover of what they're telling us in a spiritual way, and we try to, show you guys what we see in it.
So here you see a Russian analyst warns European, or we could have another WW on our hands breaking out in the Ukraine. As you see here, Russia dispatched 4,000 to the disputed border with its neighbor. There's actually a lot of military movement going on right now. You see this tweet. It says NATO tanks mobilized towards Eastern Europe and Ukraine. I've seen somebody say CSX. That's basically a line that runs just here in the United States. But it's not just this one video showing the tanks and showing equipment. There's tons. You could just find video after video after video showing the military hardware that's being lined up in a very, very ominous manner. And this is somewhere in Russia or Donetsk, which is over in this disputed area. And we see over here from the Hill, Pentagon on alert as Russia steps up saber rattling in Eastern Europe and beyond. Well, it's just amazing how fast this can move. And many will look to what's going on and say this is all going to be the prelude to Ezekiel 38.
It very well could be.
And of course, that's a large attack eventually that happens on Israel. But recognize again, as we pointed out before, that so many things have happened under the guise of it being God's will. But in reality, what's going on is not necessarily God's in the singular creator, prime creator, source of everything. Because if we really look deep, we will discover that, again, we've talked about source is in everything. Source, true source, is in every one of its creations. It has to be that way, otherwise it wouldn't be source. And so what we see going on is not the will of God. Not at all. This is the will of other beings. Humans, yes, as well as some entities that are non-human. As we see military preparations in Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. And this is out of South Front. South Front is a very good source for keeping up with everything going on military. Incredible, that's the word they use, incredible concentration of forces on the Ukrainian-Russian border. At the same time, it seems that Belarus could not avoid its engagement in political conflict and is mobilizing its own military forces as well. Meanwhile, Moscow warns the West that any deployment of military forces in the region would force it to take emergency measures for its security, but revealed the situation on the line of contact in eastern Ukraine between Ukraine government forces and pro-Russian separatist forces is dreaded, and that many provocative actions take place there. This is confirmed by several videos and photos that have been published in the last 24 hours on social media, where armored vehicles, missile systems appear, and while some reports speak of small-scale artillery attacks between separatist and Ukrainian forces, no official confirmation so far. And here you see, in case you missed it yesterday, 39 BTR-82A armored personnel carriers of the 880th Naval Infantry Battalion, 810th Guards Navy Infantry Brigade of Russia Navy Black Sea Fleet were deployed from Sevastopol towards Dzankoy in north of Crimea yesterday. Crimea is a beautiful area in the world as well. And it's amazing just how an area could go from being just so beautiful and spectacular and turned into rubble with the power that is out there nowadays. You know, lest we forget about WW2 and the tragedy that happened there. We need cooler heads to prevail. And we really need the world to wake up. Because as we said before, we were using a certain word to describe the leadership of this planet. And it certainly is not saintly, to put it, mildly.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. We need to use our intent and use our energy that has been kept from us, or at least set aside, and we've been given the impression that, oh, there's nothing you can do, you're helpless, you cannot change this situation, you're just sitting home alone. No. Don't think that. Think about using your energy as a way to make things better, how to bring about a more positive outcome, but that's what we need.
So, I mean, there's video after video after video. There's a tremendous buildup going on right now. Is it just going to be, a game of cat and mouse? Is it going to be something a little more significant? We will have to see. Is it, the old game of chicken? See who blinks. It's really going to take people like refusing to follow orders, in so many ways, or just saying, you know what, I'm not going into the service because, most of these wars, if not all, are basically corporate wars. And when we look at it from a remote viewing point of view, we see that behind all this, reality is not like it looks. And at the highest levels, the leaders understand what's going on. There's a show that goes on for the public. But in reality, so many things are planned out so long in advance. Was it God with a big G that restored Israel? Well, actually, it was somebody from a family whose name is ROTH Shield. Right? We just have to look to the Balfour Declaration and see what really is going on there. And we could go back to 1871, which was such an interesting year for so many different reasons. And Sassy's getting riled up with all this WAR talk. So as we look at the map here of the Ukraine and this territory that's being contested, you see the different artillery attacks that have been happening, and we see where Donetsk is, and let's hope that nothing major happens, and we're not talking about another infamous battle situation starting in a particular area.
Mm-hmm. That's right. We really need to put our positive intent out there, probably now more than ever, because if something like this does catch hold and it does go, it's going to cause quite a ding to humanity.
So Ukraine's eastern border is within tactical weapon striking distance to Moscow. That's why Russia won't allow NATO's footprint in the Ukraine. And this is why this situation is far worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis, is that tweet there. Now, what we did get from the guides was that everybody should be prepared, as we've talked about forever. If you could have at least 6 to 8 weeks of food, water, supplies, don't expect any help from the government, and just look at the fiasco that we saw in Texas.
Right, and that's probably the key thing they want us to get across is don't expect your government to come to your rescue, because this is to try to keep our vibrations low, to put us in a state of fear and shock and turmoil. And if they can get us to do that emotionally, they can keep us from rising up into ascension. So don't rely on them to come to your door bringing you food. Make sure you have your food and water.
Yeah, this line says it all right there. This is a dry forest ready to burn the way it's setting up here.
That's really bad.
Yeah, so we should be as prepared as possible, as always, and we're in a situation where we really can't prepare anymore. But we were told by the guides about 3 months ago, it was in January, they said, get your asses situated in 90 days or so, and be where you want to be and where you're going to feel comfortable. And so, we're just getting in under the line, so to speak, but we're not really prepared because, we're in the camper. So, we don't have the ability to really grow stuff in mass right now. But we're hoping to shortly, because we do have something that's working. And so you see Belarus deploys troops to border with the Ukraine. And, there's so many other things that we could see, going on. China and Iran, signed an agreement for 25 years of support. You see here, Iranian military vows support for Russia if Donbass is attacked, according to Iranian national TV. And it also unveils SUMAR ballistic missiles that can target Ukraine and many other NATO states. And so we had talked about certain figures, numbers, forecasts for the year 2025 that was put out by a certain website that starts with a D, followed by an E, followed by an A, followed by a G, E, L. And the numbers for certain countries, coincidentally, pretty much all NATO countries, it wasn't rosy. And again, recognize that things have been planned a long ways in advance. A day to the Lord is as if 1,000 years to a mortal, right? Now, if we're talking, Enlil, Enki, Marduk, Draco, these entities that have a much longer lifespan than a typical human, this is stuff that was just being planned maybe a few weeks ago, so to say. And Depka, we see China to post 5,000 troops in Iran to protect massive investment. And some Iranians are protesting we're not for sale. Well, again, it's not the average person making any decisions when you get down to it.
No, it's not. It's not the average person, because if it were us, we would decide not to have this.
No, and, that's one of the reasons why I have always been so pro Costa Rica, because they have no military. Nobody's invaded them. They have no military. So, and I think their healthcare costs like $50 a year for the average citizen, something like that. You guys might be able to correct me on that. So here you see China's Liaoning carrier strike group passes through Japan's Miyako Straits, and we were talking about all their quote-unquote fishing boats, which are really militia, hundreds of them massing in Philippine waters, and really upsetting the people of that country, especially the fishermen, because they're getting nudged out of their own area. And then we also had seen them off the coast of South America. And here is a very familiar shape, and this is a spy drone that was seen at Vandenberg Air Force Base. There's that very familiar shape. And so what we had seen at the military base by Hattiesburg in Mississippi, that was where we had this one drive up next to us on the road, and it followed us. It went straight next to us for several miles, and we could tell that it was kind of analyzing us.
It definitely was. It was scanning, and it was doing stuff, and it turns out it was scanning, and it was creating damage, because we fall into a certain category energetically where they can see how we can affect other people in a more positive way, and it's called targeting, and that's what happened.
Yeah, so they sort of zapped us, and Cindy saw this kind of machine that had like laser-like qualities to it. And so, and then conversely, right after that,
I got sick. I know. I kind of, my health started to deteriorate. I got sick, and it's not because I'm bad or evil because I channel or anything. It's because that's what they do to people who they see can affect other people in a positive manner, and who can start, a new way of living and a more positive way of living. They don't want that. Anybody who has that ability, they're going to slow down by any means possible.
So if we go back in time, and we go to New England in the 1600s and 1700s, it'd be burn the witch. If we want to jump forward in time into like the Marvel universe, it'll be, that's a mutant. Get the mutants. That's basically what they're looking at. Anybody that your DNA is awakening, your pineal gland is open, your kundalini has risen, and you could start to see things for what they are. You may have abilities to help others heal. You may have intuitive abilities. You may be able to channel. You may be able to remote view. Ooh, well, this throws a wrench into things. So they cannot have that. There was another show, I think it was called Sense8, right? And that was on Netflix. And that was also about people that were, they had heightened abilities and they were getting pursued by the powers that be. And, as we said before, so often the movies imitates what's really happening or is foreshadowing what's happening.
Right. So it's just really important we all stay strong. We understand that there's forces out there who are trying to stop people like us who are awakening other people, and just stay really strong. Get your body as healthy as possible, because they will do things to affect your body and, kind of bring the clock, run the clock about 5 years forward to help you deteriorate faster. And that's just a really nasty trick.
And, what was interesting too is looking at what's inside of that TR3B type plane that was there was some human soldiers. And actually, Cindy even thought it seemed like that it might be some Russian soldiers, human Russian soldiers with reptilians, with aliens.
Yeah, they had a very AI type of a feeling. They had a very a feeling that they're on a mission and they're just going to do their mission, and it doesn't matter, what happens to anybody else. They're just doing their job.
Yeah. So, again, we have to be awake as much as possible, be as prepared as much as possible. Keep yourself healthy and strong as much as you can, and your family as well. I want to thank everybody for being part of this family. Make sure you are subscribed. Thumbs up if you appreciate the info. Do share it far and wide so we could try to push back, because obviously they do restrict that as much as possible. They don't want this getting out there. And it's been forever since I even mentioned the word share. I don't think I've mentioned the word share in like 3 years. It's been so long. But we have to, because the dark forces are pushing back and doing all they can to bury the reality of the situation. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. You could reach us at evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com.
God bless and namaste.
God bless, guys. Namaste.